Hello, my name is Kristen Bolden, and I'd like to welcome you to The Other Side of History. Now, in this talk, we're going to talk about the importance of being careful in what we endorse. In the time of Jesus, for a time it seemed that the people of Galilee would receive Jesus as the Messiah, and that the power of the hierarchy in that region would be broken. However, whenever the message of truth comes home to souls with special power, Satan stirs up his agents to start a dispute over some minor question. Thus, he seeks to attract attention from the real issues. Whenever a good work is begun, there are those ready to enter into dispute over forms or technicalities to draw minds away from truth. Christ and his disciples did not observe ceremonial washings. The rules in regard to purification, they were numberless. The period of a lifetime was scarcely sufficient for one to learn them all. The life of those who tried to observe the rabbinical requirements was one long struggle against ceremonial defilement and an endless round of washings and purifications. All of these man-made rules were meant to occupy the people with trifling distinctions and observances which God did not require. Satan used these man-made rules to turn their attention away from the great principles that were in God's law. When the Jewish spies came to Jesus, they did not make a direct attack on Christ, but came to him with criticism of his disciples. In the presence of the multitude, they said, "Why do thy disciples transgress the tradition of the elders? For they wash not their hands when they eat bread." End quote. Jesus, he made no attempt to defend himself or his disciples. He made no reference to the charges against him, but proceeded to show the spirit that actuated these sticklers for human rights. He gave them an example of what they were repeatedly doing before coming in search to him. The leaders, they set aside the fifth commandment as of no consequence, but were very exact in carrying out the traditions of the elders. They taught the people that the devotion of their property to the temple was a duty more sacred than the support of their parents, and that, however great the necessity, it was sacrilege to impart to father or mother any part of what had been thus consecrated. An unfaithful child had only to pronounce the word korban over his property, thus devoting it to God, and he could retain it for his own use during his lifetime, and after his death it was to be appropriated to the temple service. Thus he was at liberty, both in life and in death, to dishonor and defraud his parents under cover of a pretense of devotion to God. We must be very careful what we endorse. The disciples themselves, they endorsed this yoke that had been bound upon them by inherited prejudice and rabbinical authority. Jesus sought to reveal the true spirit of the rabbis and to free the people from the bondage of tradition. And there were those who were really desirous of serving God. Jesus did not endorse Pharisaism. He declared that by practicing their requirements above the divine precepts, the rabbis, they were setting themselves above God. Today, there is a movement within Christianity that again is upholding a man-made tradition in the place of God's law. God's law, found in the book of Exodus, chapter 20, is plain that the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord our God. Yet today, a man-made tradition has taken over the Christian world where Sunday is worshipped instead of the seventh-day Sabbath. Even legislators have voiced that they would like to legislate this man-made Sabbath. As in Jesus' day, today, there will again be a rage shown towards those who, although cannot be accused as being violators of God's law, which was given from Sinai, they will speak against this man-made tradition of Sunday worship. We must be very careful what we endorse. The more that Sunday sacredness, which has no foundation in the scriptures, is promoted in our world, those that are standing firm to the seventh-day Sabbath, they should expect angry looks and words of dissatisfaction and revenge. When Jesus exposed the false teachings of the scribes and Pharisees, they were filled with rage. And those who honor the seventh-day Sabbath will also produce the ire of those promoting Sunday sacredness. The disciples, forgetting that Jesus read the heart like an open book, told Jesus the effect that his words were having on the rulers. They hoped that he might conciliate the enraged officials and said to Jesus, "Knowest thou that the Pharisees were offended after they heard this saying?" End quote. Jesus answered, "Every plant which my heavenly Father has not planted shall be rooted up." End quote. Likewise, Sunday observance is a custom and tradition that, although highly valued by many in this world, is not from heaven. It doesn't matter how great is the human authority that is promoting Sunday sacredness and Sunday legislation. They do not pass the testing of God and His Word. Every human invention that has been substituted for the commandments of God will be found worthless in the day when, as Ecclesiastes chapter 12:14 says, God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil. End quote. We are living in a time when religion has become quite popular and also rather political. The principle that Jesus outlined in giving to Caesar what is Caesar's and giving to God what is God's is being ignored. Whenever church and state unite, persecution will be the result. With the promotion of Sunday legislation, there is a substitution of the precepts of men for the commandments of God. There are many Christian institutions and usages that have no better foundation than the traditions of the fathers. Such institutions, resting upon mere human authority, have supplanted what is of divine authority. Yet the majority of people, they cling to man-made traditions and revere man-made customs, and harbor a hatred against those who seek to show them their error. In the book of Revelation, chapter 12, and this is verse 17, it says that Satan, who is the dragon, is angry with the woman, who is God's church, that keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. The so-called fathers of the church have no authority if they contradict the word of the eternal Father, the Lord of heaven and earth. Let all who accept human customs of the church or the traditions of the fathers take heed to the warning conveyed in the words of Christ. In vain they do worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. End quote. It is very important that we are careful in what we are endorsing. What we endorse by our words and actions. Many a person has been financially ruined by signing their names as an endorsement for someone. Proverbs, and this is chapter 11, verse 15, it says, "He that is surety for a stranger shall smart for it." End quote. Now, some time ago, a man named Israel Day, who had a large family that was dependent upon his earnings for support, he found it difficult in his neighborhood to find employment. Now, the family was poor, and it was only by the strictest economy that was practiced that they were able to furnish the bare necessities of life. Now, Mr. Day's neighbor often wondered how it happened that such a man as Mr. Day should be so poor. He had no intemperate or extravagant habits and was a man of more than common education. And there was an air of intelligence and refinement about the entire family. They were very uncommunicative as to their former life, and there was something about them that forbade inquisitiveness. One day, a wealthy man named Mr. Black came to Mr. Day's neighbor's home. So Mr. Black was reputed to be the wealthiest man in the township, and they felt quite honored. He had dinner with the family and had a way of flattering and making everyone feel at ease in his company. He was a very genial man and an excellent talker. He praised the neat appearance of the farm and buildings, complimented the wife on her good cooking, and called the son a manly fellow. By the time the dinner was over, he had gained the goodwill of the entire family. After dinner, Mr. Black, he asked to see the farm animals, barn, and the outbuildings. Mr. Day's neighbor, he took pride in having good, well-fed stock and one of the most conveniently arranged barns in the country, and he was glad to show him around. While outside, Mr. Black made known the object of his visit. He had found a piece of very desirable property for sale at a good price. So there was no question that within less than a year he could pay it off. But to obtain the land, he would have to pay all of the cash down, and he lacked some of the money to pay for it. He wished for Mr. Day's neighbor to become security for him for 1 year, as he had found a party who was willing to lend him the amount if his signature could be had to the note. Not giving the man time to think or scarcely to answer the question, Mr. Black, he took out his pocketbook and handed him a paper, supposing it to be the note which he had drawn up and signed by himself. All was ready for Mr. Day's neighbor's signature. Then Mr. Black, he realized that he had made a mistake and left the note that he had prepared at home. A shade of vexation, it passed over Mr. Black's face, and he said, "Never mind, I will call again this evening." Mr. Day's neighbor was troubled, not wanting to endorse for anyone, But he felt that to refuse such a rich and powerful man as Mr. Black would be an insult if he refused. After all, he was very rich and powerful, and there could not be any risk in it. After Mr. Black had left, Mr. Day's neighbor, he got a visit from Mr. Day. The father and the son, they were standing together, and the father thought that Mr. Day would want to talk to him alone. However, Mr. Day said, "No, let him stay, for one cannot learn too soon the lesson that my experience teaches. I would be willing that I should be published to the world, if thereby some could be saved from my bitter experience." I overheard, as you know, what Mr. Black said to you. Please listen to my story, and then decide as to whether you will put your name on his note. 15 years ago, when I was married, I was not the poor man that you now know me to be. My father gave me property and money, which I had increased threefold. My wife also received a nice amount of money as her wedding portion. We were both strong and willing to work, and ambitious to succeed in the world. We bought a farm, and for several years were greatly prospered. We had good health, and the seasons were favorable, so that we grew heavy crops and obtained fair prices for them. At the end of 5 years, we were debt-free and had money in the bank. There was a man named Mr. Cole, who had come into our neighborhood that was the most companionable man that I had ever met. He had been a lawyer, but had been appointed by the general government to a lucrative office which he held for some years. He had the reputation of being a very wealthy man. He lived in good style and was a general favorite in all of the community. My wife and I decided to build a new home, and when we were finished, we found ourselves in some debt. I went to the bank to borrow the amount until I could find someone who would let me have it for 1 or 2 years. Not being accustomed to borrow money, it did not occur to me that an endorser would be necessary, until the cashier of the bank informed me that it was their invariable custom to require security. Mr. Cole happened to be in at the same time, and he overheard the conversation and came forward with a pleasant good morning, saying, "I shall be only too happy to endorse my friend, Mr. Day." Of course, I felt both grateful and flattered. After 2 years, the debt on my house was paid. I determined to build a fine barn, and so money was borrowed again, and the building of my barn began. Then one day, Mr. Cole visited me, and like Mr. Black, he seemed delighted with everything that he saw. He flattered us, and he put us in the best possible humor, and then he asked me to endorse a large note for 60 days. He assured me that he could meet it, or even twice as much. Against my better judgment, I consented, and affixed my signature to the note. This act, it ruined me. Before the 60 days expired, I learned that he was bankrupt. My farm was sold as a sacrifice, and when I paid off the money that I had borrowed to build my barn, I was left penniless. I was alarmed today when I saw you about to fall into the same trap that I did. I wish I could make my voice heard to every young man in the land. I would say to him, shun, as you would a serpent, this evil which has brought ruin to so many families. Today, I fully realize what it means to put my name on another man's paper. To do this is to assume all the risks of his business without any voice in its management or any possible chance of profit if he is successful. There is a fearful certainty that if from any cause he makes a failure, my earnings must make it good, even though it reduces my family to beggary. A very large percent of the business failures of the country, and nearly all among farmers, are due to this practice, he said. My question is, what are we putting our names to today? Many are binding themselves up with people, corporations, societies, traditions, etc., and are like bundles ready to burn. We have to be very careful as to what we are joining ourselves to and what we are endorsing. Our world today has become bold in transgression of God's law. Because of God's long forbearance, men have trampled upon his authority, and they have strengthened one another in opposition and cruelty towards his heritage. I want to endorse the law of God and put it above the laws and traditions of men. By doing this, I know that I will be signing up for reproach, persecution, accusation, and misrepresentation. But there is nobody and nothing better to endorse than God and his word. Whenever we surrender our names and our lives to his service, we will never be placed in a position for which God has not made provision. And his rewards, they are beyond our comprehension. I want to thank each one of you for listening, and I am wishing God's blessings to each one of you.